Hey, Ari. We are just making sure everybody who needs to participate is in the waiting room, and then we're gonna get started. So just give me 1 second. Hey, everybody. So final round is between Team 12 and Team 28. Could members of both of those teams confirm who is missing or if everybody is present from both your teams?
Everyone's here for Team 12.
Thank you. Team 28, I know the coach is here. Are the competitors in the waiting room?
I think there's some people in the waiting room still. I know our coach is trying to get in. Would you mind double checking that?
Yes, could you confirm what his name was or her name?
Yeah, Clay O'Neill.
Got you. So competitors, I see a Daniel Weil in the waiting room. Is he a part of either of your teams?
He's not a part of Team 12.
Gotcha. Great. Just need to confirm. Okay, I think if everybody's here, we'll go ahead and get started. So congratulations, first of all, on making it to the championship round of the 2022 TPFNC. Both of you have worked really hard, and we appreciate your efforts to this point. So now I know each team has heard these set of rules several times by now, but as a formality, I'll go through the rules one last time, and there will be a bit of a stipulation for the judges, so just keep your ears open for that. This negotiation will have a 45-minute time limit. The bailiff will notify teams when there is a 10-minute, when there's 10 minutes remaining, and I'll also notify you when there's 2 minutes remaining by sending a Zoom chat to all competitors. Only 2 members of a team may be active in a single negotiation, and all other team members, coaches, or persons affiliated with the team need to remain with their cameras off and muted. Each team will be allowed 2 minutes of timeouts, which they may divide into 2 1-minute timeouts or take as a single 2-minute timeout. The teams will be placed into the breakout rooms by myself. Coaches and alternative members will be placed in a separate breakout room and may not join the room with the competitors. All participants' names should appear as the team number dash the player or the team dash your own name. Coaches and spectators may join, but they should also change their names to the team number dash coach. They'll not be able to reference anything that has occurred since January 10th of 2022. And if either side violates rules of the competition, the other side must object during the current negotiation, and they can only be made during the negotiation. Negotiations will begin with each side introducing themselves and giving a brief opening statement. After those opening statements, the side representing the team can present their initial offer. And once they have done that and any fact finding necessary, the agents may go. The negotiation will end when both sides come to a full agreement or the time expires. If the time expires without the sides coming to an agreement, neither side will receive points for any of the objectives. Minimum P5 salary for all players is $1 million. Salary can be either fully guaranteed at signing, partially guaranteed at signing, or not at all. We have not included any vesting guarantees. When both sides have come to an agreement, they will need to fill in the final contract. But for the championship round, we're actually going to waive that requirement. The judges will decide who has come to a better deal. After the completion of the negotiation, the teams will be placed in the breakout rooms, and the judges for this championship round will all be placed in a breakout room amongst each other, where they will be able to deliberate amongst themselves for who has won this year's competition. After about 10 minutes, or when the judges have reached a decision, they'll return to the main session and announce the winners, as well as give feedback to the competitors. Are there any questions before we begin?
Nope, I think we're good.
Great. Well, I'm going to set the timer for 45. I'm going to stop this share screen so we can see all your faces. And when you begin team side, I will start the 45-minute clock and we can get going.
All right, thank you. And thank you both so much for meeting with us today. Since drafting Devontae in the second round of the 2014 NFL Draft, he's been a key part of the Green Bay Packers' dominance. His relationship with Aaron Rodgers has helped the duo become one of the best in NFL history. We want a longer deal. We know Devontae bleeds green and yellow, and we don't want to see him in another jersey. But we need to protect the team, and his deal needs to make sense financially, especially for his age. That being said, we also have some concerns about his injury history, missing multiple games, multiple years in a row. Additionally, we don't want to see him experience the same issues as other players when they sign a long-term deal. If we look at Julio Jones, after he was signed, we saw a significant drop-off in his stats. Some of the bigger things that we're concerned with today are first-year cash flow, guarantees, and APY. We are excited to reach an agreement with Devontae, and to give you an idea of what type of deal would be right for him, Tyler has prepared some player comparisons.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And would somebody just mind confirming that you can see what I'm seeing?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. Thanks, guys. So a couple players that we want to take a look at in relation to Devontae here. So Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, some great players, kind of setting the range for where we feel comfortable, especially looking at the APY and signing bonus in particular. Taking a look over at the stats, Devontae's a stud. I'm sure there's some comps that the other team's going to bring up. Devontae's representation, I'm sure you're going to talk about a couple of other guys, but those are really deals that haven't worked out well. Each of those guys that might have gotten a little bit more money has either been injured or had huge drop-offs in production. So, we're not going to pretend like Devontae hasn't been this incredible receiver, especially this year and even last year as well. So we want to be realistic with that, but we also need to make sure that the team doesn't end up in an untenable situation where they've got somebody making a whole bunch of money that isn't able to contribute because gave him a big, huge contract and he got injured, just like every other one of these high paid receivers that we haven't touched on here that I think you guys might bring up as comps. So with that, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say and get started. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you guys being here at the table with us. We're looking forward to getting a deal done. I'm Ryan. This is Brett, and we're obviously here on behalf of Davante Adams. And we think Davante is the best receiver in the National Football League, and we're here to reset the market. We think he's more than earned that throughout his career in Green Bay, and we think he's the best receiver in football. So in terms of comparisons, in a sense, we don't think there are comparisons, but obviously we'll be looking at guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones and the contracts they got. And like I said, we are looking to reset the market and make him the highest paid receiver in NFL history.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We'll give you an initial offer and then we can work through it and figure out what is exactly right for Devontae. I have shared the offer in the chat. You can open it and you can edit it. Just take a look when you get the chance.
Perfect. Thank you.
Now, just to walk you through the deal, or have you had a chance to open it?
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Great. We're looking for a longer deal. We feel the same. Devontae is a great player, so we want to keep him on the Packers. We have a first-year cash flow issue, so we want to keep that low in the first year, and then we or definitely be willing to increase his P5 in the years after that to sort of give him, more of an APY that is commensurate with his ability. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Tyler?
No, I think you touched on it well. So we're trying to give him something that's reflective of his talents. We'd love to hear if he has any specific goals that we need to address. But curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for this offer. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to kind of getting the ball rolling towards chipping away at some of these discrepancies that I think we're bound to have. Like we said, Devontae is the best receiver in the league. We do feel that way, and the stats do bring it up. The first thing I just wanted to address is a little bit of a discrepancy between some of the guys that you're comping to and the deal that you're offering us. In terms of guys like Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, which you've compared us to, they're making $20 million a year. You currently have us at an APY of 18. It's definitely something we're going to need to look at. But before we get into all that, I definitely wanted to bring up some of the statistical comparisons that we see. We do think that Devontae is the best receiver in the league. So as we said, the comparisons we don't think hold too much weight here, because we do think that that he is handedly better than them. But you can look at stats from 2021, which obviously, I mean, Devontae had a monster year. But we kind of prefer to look at it the 2 years prior to the contract, where we feel that he is superior to every receiver in the league. He leads in targets compared to DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones, receptions. He leads in touchdowns. He's a touchdown monster. He just is always catching balls in the red zone. You also see these first down numbers, and catch percentage is also higher than the other two guys that we're looking at. So that's kind of where we're coming from. And again, we really appreciate the offer. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, I think, we're all in agreement here. We don't dispute that Devontae's a stud. He's been a great receiver over the last few years. It's really just a question of what are we able to come to an agreement on today?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I would just like to add, I know you said you're looking at stats 2 years prior when, his production was up, but I think, one of our biggest concerns is that a lot of times after signing these long-term deals, the stats go down. And so we want to make sure that we want to protect the team, especially if you look at players like Julio Jones, as you've compared him to. We saw a decrease in production after he signed a long-term deal. And I think that is one of our greater concerns. Is there anything you want to add to that, Tyler?
Sure. I mean, while we're on the topic, Julio Jones, he's been so middling that he got traded away from the Falcons. He was, Falcon for life. We all thought, and since going to, I believe he's on the Titans now, he just hasn't done anything. You got the best running back in the league, and even still, he really isn't doing anything. DeAndre Hopkins signed this massive deal that you're referencing, blew out his knee. Michael Thomas didn't play it down in 2021. Kenny Galladay had significant knee issues. So when you look at the list of receivers that have really gotten paid highly, consistently you're seeing these guys that they get a really big contract, and then something happens to them and they aren't able to contribute to the team at all. So we want to make sure that the Packers aren't put in a position similar to that. We want to make sure the team as a whole is able to win. And so that's really where we want to make sure we keep this within that realm.
Right. And I respect where you're coming from. The one thing I would say about that is if you're concerned about the injuries and the longer term contract, you are coming in at a 5-year deal, which when we share kind of where we're coming from, we also come in at a 5-year deal. So I think there's some mutual interest there in securing a longer term deal. But I don't really see how that adds up. You're saying you have concerns about sort of the long-term viability, yet you're offering a 5-year deal. So that's one point. And then I think just looking at the elements of the contract, obviously the 18 APY is something that, we're going to come in much higher than that. And the signing bonus being at 10 million, I don't think there's really much justification for that when you look at some of the comparisons and some of the things the Packers have done in the past in terms of signing bonus. So yeah, with that said, I can share our opening offer, and I'm going to put a Google sheet in the chat in 1 second.
You know what? This is actually an editable Google sheet. You can just drop it right in there, so we only have to keep track of one sheet.
I've got it here like set up already, so I'd actually prefer to use mine if you don't mind. So just let me know when you have that open. Do you guys see that?
I think it's a.
I think that's a link to ours. I think you might have grabbed the wrong link on that.
Sorry, 1 second. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Here is the updated. That should be actually right there. And let me know if you can see that contract.
Yeah, we can see it. Would you mind walking us through the contract?
Sure. Yeah, so it's a 5-year deal for 146.5 million. Like we said, we didn't hold anything back when we said we were gonna try to make Devontae the highest paid receiver in the league. We think that's justified. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is at the top of the market right now with a $27.5 million APY. The signing bonus again is record setting. It's 42.5 million. But when we look at some of the other signing bonuses that the Packers have done, we think this is actually pretty realistic, and especially considering that this is a 5-year deal, whereas DeAndre and Julio are shorter term deals. So I think that 42.5 number is justified when you look at guys like Bakhtiari getting $30 million signing bonus, Aaron Rodgers getting 57.5. Zadarius Smith getting 20. The Packers have shown a willingness to give these large signing bonuses. So that's where we're coming from in terms of numbers there.
Okay. I mean, I think to address one of our concerns that we've brought up, I'm saying, $82 million fully guaranteed. Do you have any context for where that's coming from? Or is there another player that we've missed that's making anywhere near that?
Well, the percentage of the contract that's guaranteed is what we're really looking at there. And it's 56.3% of the contract. And when you look at the 5 highest paid receivers in the league, they average out to 58% guaranteed. The 6 highest paid, they average out to 58% guaranteed. So that's really where we got that number. And yeah, so we don't think that's an exorbitant amount of money in terms of guaranteed when we're looking at a 5-year deal.
I think that's definitely going to be a concern for us. But Elizabeth, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think some other concerns we have is about the signing bonus as well. Like, even if we're looking at some of your players, like that you compare them to, it's like $25 and $27 million signing bonus for Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. And when we're looking at longer term deals, some of our player comparisons, like Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen had 13.5 million, while Amari Cooper had 10 million. It just doesn't really seem to be commensurate or have any sort of relation to his talent level and what the market is saying for these types of players. So I think that might be a little too high. Additionally, I do want to talk again about the first year cash flow. We do have an issue there, and that still just is too high. So we're going to need to come down a bit on that. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm curious. So again, seeing that huge signing bonus, huge guaranteed, we hear you that you want to reset the market. We've expressed our concerns about how it really hasn't worked out for any one of those receivers that's gotten one of those big contracts. I'm sure the teams would love to have those back. We need to make sure we don't make the same mistake here. But we hear you speaking to Devontae's skill level. Even accepting that, trying to reset the market, asking for a $42 million signing bonus just really doesn't feel like there was a whole lot of thought put into that.
Well, there was thought put into it, and just to address some of that, with respect to Elizabeth, to your comments about Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper signing bonus, we think, Devontae's in another league to those guys. And like I said, we're really looking at those DeAndre and Julio signing bonus numbers of 27 and 25. And you got to look, DeAndre's 27.5 signing bonus was on a 2-year extension. Julio's $25 million signing bonus was on a 3-year deal. We're looking at a 5-year deal. So when you're talking about some of these long-term concerns, I'm not really seeing them add up in the fact that you are also offering a 5-year deal. So that's one thing. And then in terms of like I said about the guaranteed percentage, it adds up perfectly with, the average of the top 6 paid receivers in the league. And with regard to the signing bonus, the Green Bay Packers have shown a tendency to sign these very large signing bonuses. David Bakhtiari, like I said, on $30 million, Aaron Rodgers on 57, Zadarius Smith on 20. Those are all top 10 signing bonuses in the history of the NFL at each of those positions. So, like I said, obviously we're willing to work with you on the signing bonus. We think for a 5-year deal, this is fair, but the Packers have shown a tendency to do this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add there real quick as well. Again, I don't want to get too bogged down by these comparisons and these comps that we have, but I do think we are still a little bit far away on where we see these two players. As you said, you've stated your concerns about maybe the long-term ability of these receivers, which to be completely honest, these deals are signed based on the merits of their career, and we feel that the guys that you were comping to in terms of Amari Cooper and I think it was Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, they just don't really equate to our guy. I mean, in terms of the 2 years prior to their contract signing, the yardage numbers aren't close, the touchdown numbers aren't close. Devontae catches 75% of balls that come his way. I mean, it's a high number, and he's really shown that he's a consistent wide receiver. he's shown that he's in a completely other league. I do think we have to kind of work up a little bit from those two comps, as I don't really.
And just to put the numbers in context, Keenan and Amari combined did not have as many touchdowns as Davante Adams in the 2 years prior to their contract. So I think we're clearly talking about a player sort of above that level, no doubt. And like I said, we know he's the best receiver in the league, and we think he should be compensated that way. Just one thing that I think will help us move forward a little bit. You've expressed these concerns about a longer term deal, yet we're at the same deal length right now. So that's something I think, let's sort of iron that out first and figure out, are we going to sort of keep bringing up concerns about a longer term deal? Because if so, we can talk about a 4 or 3 year structure, but the fact that you came in at 5 and we came in at 5, I'm just not seeing where the long-term concerns add up. So I think if we can settle the year, start maybe making some progress on the other terms.
Sure. Well, I'm glad to see we're both here for a 5-year deal, and our goal is that Davante is able to keep contributing to the Packers for many years to come. I think really the misunderstanding there is that if something were to happen to Davante, you've got $82 million guaranteed, which is unheard of for a receiver. Specifically, when you've had so many receivers that have gone down, so many of these prominent high-level receivers getting a lot of money and then not being able to contribute, whether injury or otherwise, because they're starting to fall off towards the end of their careers. So I think the length of the contract isn't so much what's an issue. I think offering, let's see, what is it, $16 million guaranteed in the 3rd year, plus all these roster bonuses, plus the massive signing bonus. That's a huge amount of money to have tied up in somebody who very may well have a significant injury like we've seen with these other high-level receivers. So I don't think the length of the contract is at issue. I think it's more the structure of it. So with that being said, like you said, it does seem like we're far apart here. I think some of the numbers, $42 million signing bonus, almost what Aaron Rodgers got, that's just really not realistic for a receiver. I don't think that's really grounded in the market reality, anything. And so I want to make sure we dial back from that to get to a little bit closer. I hear your concerns, and Elizabeth, you can jump in here too. But I'm hearing your concerns about Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, saying that Davante is a higher performer, and we don't dispute that. He is. He's a great receiver, and he's been tremendous the last couple of seasons. So, I don't think there's any misunderstanding there. It's more, no matter how good he is, there's just a limit on how much somebody's going to get paid.
Yeah,
right. We can all at least agree that he is Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. He's well above those guys. I'd like to at least see a contract that reflects that. You're coming in at 18 million APY. Kenny Galladay's on 18 million APY, and I don't think we're really talking about that stratosphere. So, I mean, if we're going to be talking a deal to get Davante Adams on the Green Bay Packers, we're going to be at that market-setting level. And I hear where you're coming from in terms of the $42.5 million signing bonus is unprecedented, and we're willing to work with you on that. But like I said, this is a 5-year deal. DeAndre Hopkins got a 27.5 signing bonus for a 2-year deal. So it's not that outrageous when you look at the difference in length. Surely if we came in at a lower length, a 3 or 4 year deal, it wouldn't be that high. It's the fact that we came up on a 5-year deal, and I'm glad that we can at least agree on that. I think what would be helpful going forward is if you guys could maybe throw a new structure in there that you guys think would work, and then hopefully we can build towards building something together here.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, definitely. We do hear your concerns about the signing bonus, and we would be willing to increase that. However, we're going to need to come down a little bit on the APY for Davante Adams, as well as the fully guaranteed by year. The Packers just don't feel comfortable going that high in terms of the fully guaranteed money by a year. Additionally, I think, as we stated, like the first year cash flow is an issue for us. So the 52 million is just a bit too high right now. I can put in another offer if we want to, keep this moving and try to reach an agreement. Do you think we're ready for that, Tyler?
Yeah, I guess just one final thing before we put that in is, so we understand the desire to reset the market. We get that. Is there anything else that's really important to Davante? For instance, we've expressed, we need to keep an eye on that first year hit. Is there anything else that he really needs to see, or is this really just trying to get as much money as possible?
Yeah, of course. We're really looking at the totality of this contract. I mean, when we say we want to reset the market, it comes in all aspects of this deal. Granted, we are willing to work with you. Like you said, that percent guaranteed and the first year cash flow as well as the APY seem to be a little bit of an issue for you guys. We're willing to work on those. Again, we'd love to see another offer from you guys, just to kind of try to start chipping away at these numbers. But like we said, if this is going to be a record-setting deal and a market-setting deal, then it's going to come in almost all aspects of the deal as well.
All right, well, given that we can't edit your Excel sheet, I've placed it in the original one that I shared. Do you need me to share that with you again?
Are we looking at where are we looking at?
No, we see
100 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
100 million. Okay. Great. Could you walk us through some of the elements here?
Definitely. So we heard your concerns about the APY. So we've raised it by 2 million. We're at a 20 million APY. We did want to lower the signing bonus from what you had, but obviously increase ours a bit. And I think the main issue is that we have to keep the first year cash flow lower. So we have that at 19 right now. And then the P5, it starts at 4 just to keep that first year cash flow smaller. And then, obviously it increases over time. Did I miss anything, Tyler?
No, I think you covered it.
Great. So, I appreciate you guys coming up to an APY of 20. Like I said, if you're comping to Keenan and Amari and those guys are at 20 and Keenan's at a little bit more, we've agreed he's a much better player. So we want to see that reflected in the contract. So again, that APY is going to be a sticking point for us, especially with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins making $27.5 million a year. The signing bonus and the first year cash is something I keep hearing you mention. So is there a target that you guys have there? Because we are willing to work with you, but just understand that we've been looking at some of these other signing bonuses that you've given to Devontae's teammates like Aaron Rodgers, David Bakhtiari, Zadarius Smith, and this is not on par with those. So, I understand that you may be trying to work something for the first year cash flow. And if there's an explicit number you can give us, maybe we can work a contract in there. But the signing bonuses are justified. Ours is surely high on the high side and record side, but we feel it was justified given a 5-year deal and some of the comps we have. And then yours at 15, it's just barely above your comps, who we've agreed is better, who we've agreed Devontae is better than. And it pales in comparison to some of the signing bonus the Packers have given out.
Sure. Well, I think, one thing to clear up right off the spot is, like we mentioned before, his signing bonus is never going to be something like a quarterback. This is a quarterback driven league. Those contracts really aren't comparable to what a wide receiver gets. So we hear what you're saying about him, the Aaron Rodgers signing bonus, some of the other signing bonuses, but that's really not a fair comparison for a receiver.
Right. I think David Bakhtiari as a left tackle is a fair comparison. Sure. We can get off that Aaron Rodgers 57 number, but there was quite a bit of a gap between 57 and 42 in the first place. But look, for a 5-year deal, and given that DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones are at 25 and 27 signing bonuses, we're going to be looking to be, above that because we're at a 5-year deal and those are significantly shorter deals. So, and like I said, given the Packers' history with signing bonuses, I don't think that's out of the question. So I've prepared a counter that I can share in the chat. Sorry, the chat.
You can put it in that middle section.
I put it in the sheet that we used originally. Sorry, it's just easier for me to work it that way. So if you have that, I can sort of walk you through it. We've come down a little bit quite a bit on the APY, almost $2 million a year. It's still a 5-year deal. It's still a 5-year deal for $138 million. We've come down to $30 million on the signing bonus. And that's going to be really a sticking point for us because for a 5-year deal, we think that's extremely justified given that DeAndre Hopkins literally got 27.5 for a 2-year extension. So we think that is justified. It resets the market, which is something we're looking for, but we're really not going to be willing to go lower than that $30 million signing bonus. And then across the board, the valuations, get us to that 27.6 APY.
Sure. And something I keep hearing you come back to is the justification for the longer contract being a justification for a higher signing bonus. And we appreciate that you've come down on that number. But I think the other side to that coin that's been glossed over is that should also be a lower APY. I mean, we're talking about a wide receiver that's 29 years old on a 5-year contract. Why is he going to be making the better part of $30 million per year when he's what, 35, 34 years old? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. So yes, you're looking at, DeAndre Hopkins got 27,250. And as we've expressed, I'm sure the team would love to have that deal back. It has not worked out. He can't play right now. But even then, looking at the 5-year deal that you keep coming back to as justification for the signing bonus, I think it's also important to look at the other side of that, which is why the APY is just far too high across a 5-year deal, far beyond anything else.
Yeah, again, why should he be making 27.6? Because he's the best receiver in the league, and someone else makes 27.5. And we believe not only is this contract, not only does he deserve the best contract, but it also lines up from a salary cap perspective. With this contract we offered, he's only going to hit 7.7% of the cap in 2022. And if you look at some of these other guys, DeAndre Hopkins is hitting the cap at 12.1% in 2022. Julio's hitting the cap at 8%. And, with your comment with respect to do the Cardinals regret signing DeAndre Hopkins, I think it's fair to say that until this season, that certainly wouldn't have been the case. And, everybody has injuries at a time or another in the NFL. I don't think it's fair to say a team regrets their contract when their player has been performing at an all-pro level the previous 2 years. So that's my pushback on that comment about DeAndre. But DeAndre's at 12.1% of the cap the next 2 years. And on the deal that we offered, Devontae would be at 7.7 and 11.6. So coming in below that, the cap is going to continue to grow. And I don't think these are unprecedented levels as much as you may want to argue they are.
I do think that the signing bonus is unreasonably high for this type of player. Like even in your comparisons, they are a bit lower. And then we look at other receivers in the league, it doesn't even come close to that 30 million. So I think at this point, Tyler and I would like to take a little time out so that we can run through these numbers and try to figure out a way to reach an agreement.
Gotcha. You are at 17 minutes and 39 seconds remaining. I'll put you in the breakout rooms for your timeout.
Thank you.
I was like, oh.
All right, is everyone back?
Yep, we're here.
All right, and is Elizabeth here?
Yes, I am.
Great.
We're ready to go when you start.
Yeah, definitely. So we thought about, your offer, and we're trying to figure out a way to reach an agreement. I think that, we would be willing to increase the signing bonus, but we do have a hard line on the APY. We just can't increase it by the amount that you're asking for. It's just not reflective of the market, especially for Davante Adams. So we have an offer here that we prepared. I can share it with you, and I can put it in the original tool that we shared with you in the final offer. So if we're going to be accommodating a higher signing bonus, we're going to need to lower that P5 in the first year, but we did increase the APY overall.
Yeah. So we see it in here, and thanks for coming up a little bit on some of those numbers. We're kind of chipping away at that gap at the signing bonus, which has kind of been a sticking point, I think. And we really appreciate that. We also, we don't feel like we're coming in at 30 on the signing bonus at an unreasonable level. I mean, you have DeAndre Hopkins at 27.5, and we've already pointed out the fact that the Packers are very willing to give these signing bonuses out. We also are interested in kind of talking about this first year cash flow. It seems like this is a little bit of an issue for you, a sticking point for you. Obviously, we're going to want to see a little bit higher of a number in this first year P5, but we're really willing to work around some of these numbers. Ryan, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, you said there's a hard line on APY. It seems like there might also be a hard line on you guys for year by year cash, and we're willing to work with those. Well, possibly depending on what the APY one is. We're certainly willing to work with you on the year by year cash to an extent, because we are looking at that $30 million signing bonus. So I don't know if you mentioned there's a hard line. Could you please let us know? Because that might help us move forward.
Sure. We don't mind telling you that, we have concerns about quarterback position, and we're not prepared to go above $20 million for that first year cash.
Right. So that was sort of the elephant in the room that we hadn't sort of brought up yet. I think with respect to your quarterback position, Aaron Rodgers' favorite target is Davante Adams. He said so in the press. He said he's the best player he's ever played with. So if you guys decide to keep Aaron Rodgers, I'd imagine he wouldn't be very happy if his favorite target of all time is not there. If you guys decide to move on from Aaron Rodgers, there's Jordan Love. I'm pretty sure having the best receiver in football will be helpful for a rookie quarterback. So, when we're looking at the value he brings, it goes beyond himself as just a football player to the Packers specifically. Regardless of which quarterback you guys decide to move on with, Davante Adams is going to be a key part of making sure you guys remain successful. So that's why we're going to stick hard at that 27.5, 27.6 number for this 5-year contract, because he has shown his value as an NFL wide receiver, and he's also shown his value even more so to the Green Bay Packers. So we appreciate you guys coming up, but like I said, we're wanting to reset the market today. And with this signing bonus at 18.75, which is lower than 3 of his teammates and lower than the 2 comps we're looking at, it's just not really making much sense. And we think on the open market, he can certainly command what we're seeking.
Sure. And he may be able to get more elsewhere. However, this is really about what the Packers are prepared to offer for Davante. He won't have the opportunity to reach the open market just yet either, because of the franchise tag as well. So it may be that he could earn a little bit more elsewhere, and we'd like to find a way to get Davante a deal that he's happy with, but we're really not concerned about losing him this offseason.
Yeah, we do think that this offer is pretty reasonable. You came in here with a pretty aggressive offer considering the market. We think we've been pretty reasonable, trying to accommodate some of your concerns, and we do hear that, and we do want to keep Davante Adams if possible, but at this point we just cannot increase the first year cash flow, and we really can't go much higher on the signing bonus. I think that's probably where we're at.
Can you give us some hard numbers on that first year cash flow and a hard number if there is a signing bonus? I mean, I think the market shows that the signing bonus could be higher. So unless there's a hard number and a reason behind it, it's going to be hard for us to accept, given that the market says that he can get this money.
Yeah, I also just wanted to address real quick. You had mentioned the franchise tag. Quite frankly, the franchise tag is not something that we really would appreciate, and honestly, it's something that we would consider sitting out of camp. We don't think that Aaron Rodgers would be pretty pleased with this number 1 target. The 19-1 number is not something we're really looking at, and we feel that we come in demanding much higher, and we really don't want to get to that point is kind of what we're saying, along with the fact that the franchise tag at 19.1 is a lot of money in the first year. I mean, that's all first year cash, which is something that has been really a sticking point for you guys. It doesn't seem to make much sense with the team's objectives, along with us in good faith getting a mutually beneficial deal for our client here today. So I don't think that that's something we should consider.
Sure. Well, I think you bring up a great point about, maybe something that Devontae wouldn't be happy with. And really, that's why we're coming in here trying to negotiate and work out a long-term deal so he can continue to be a Packer for years and years. And we want to be very mindful of that. I think it's been no secret that the Packers have had some, question marks around their quarterback for a while. And that's why we have that hard number at 20 million, like you asked about, for that first year cash flow. We need to make sure that they're able to have a continually winning organization in years to come. And as far as the franchise tag's concerned, again, we want Devontae to be happy, be a Packer for years and years, but that is something that we're prepared to offer as opposed to a $138 million deal for a receiver that's knocking on 30 years old.
Great. I mean, I think at this point, we'll try to take a timeout to hopefully put something together. Like I said, we're still far off on that 21.1 number. We're still at a market setting expectation. So we'll try to get a little bit creative with the numbers for you and see if that works a little better on your end. In terms of year by year cash of 20 million, I think that's going to be very difficult for us because it's just not really adding up, because you're trying to lock him into a long-term deal, but then you're stating an ability to use the franchise tag, but wanting to stay at 20 million. So the franchise tag is 19.1. If your year by year first year cash is at 20, but you're also wanting to lock him into a long-term deal, it's not really making too much logistical sense, but we'll take a timeout, try to come back with something that's amenable for you guys, and hopefully move this forward.
Okay, I have stopped the clock at 10 minutes, 14 seconds remaining, and I'll put you in the breakout rooms.
I'm glad we could all come back to the table. I think some of the concerns with the franchise tag, we just have to address it. As you were saying, it would be around $19 million for that first year, and that is less than what you're asking for now, and less than what we are for the first year cash flow. I think Tyler also had some things to add about the franchise tag.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's some questions around the numbers, so we want to make it clear. Our hard limit's $20 million in cash for that first year. If it's a franchise tag, obviously that's not ideal. We'd love to get them signed up for a long-term contract, but that does satisfy that objective and lets us answer any question marks that we have at the quarterback position for this upcoming season. In fact, I'm looking at this offer and doing the numbers, and we could not saying we would, but just by the numbers to put it into perspective, I think we could franchise tag Devontae for the next 3 years, and even with the 20% increase every year, I think we'd still be saving money to franchise him for the next 3 years rather than take this deal. So with that in mind, we want to find a way that Devontae is going to be happy and be signed up to a long-term deal and stay with the Packers, but just help you guys understand a little bit more about the position that we're in with the franchise tag and our current limit. So we'd love to hear anything that you guys have. So far, all we're really hearing is, more. Is there any nuance to that, or is it just, trying to get the biggest number possible?
Well, I mean, you say we've only been looking for more, but from our perspective, we've come down quite a bit. It's less. So we've come down 12 million on the signing bonus. We've come down 2 million on the APY. And quite frankly, like if we're talking about top of the market, we think this is fair. So I prepared an offer that, based on what you're saying, sounds like you're not going to be too thrilled with. We've come down to the 27.5 number, which is right on DeAndre Hopkins. And we've brought the signing bonus down to 28.5. The year-by-year first year cash is 31.5 million, but the cap hit is only 8.7. So if you want to talk about the franchise tag and how that's going to impact the cap, like this is a much more beneficial deal for you guys. Obviously, cap considerations with the franchise tag, you mentioned tagging him 3 times. That certainly is not, it's not good business it's not good business from a satisfying our client standpoint. We obviously are not receptive. We don't want the franchise tag for 1 year. We're certainly not going to be amenable to it for 2 and 3 years. Think about the impact that's going to have on your fans. Think about the impact that's going to have on your quarterback situation again. So again, we're very comfortable in our valuation, setting the market at a record level. So that's how we've come to this 27.5 APY. We're really not willing to go lower than that because that is the top of the market right now. We've come down on the signing bonus significantly. You've given 2 players signing bonuses larger than that within the last 3 years. So we don't think that's outrageous from a market perspective or from a Packers perspective. And we have worked with you quite a bit on that year-by-year cash flow for the first year.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Do you mind if I just explain one thing real quick?
Go ahead.
Something I apologize if we didn't make it clear. It's the year-by-year cash flow, which you just referenced, but earlier you mentioned the cap hit. The first year cash flow is really what we're concerned about. So I'm sorry if we didn't make that clear enough earlier, but it sounds like maybe you're conflating the 2 numbers. You referenced both. I'm seeing 31.5 first year cash flow and only an $8,700 cap hit. So we appreciate that you're working with us, but it's actually the cash flow that we need to manage.
Right. No, and I appreciate. I understood that you were looking at the cash flow from a cap perspective, though. That's obviously important for you guys to consider as well. And they go hand in hand to an extent. Obviously, you guys are $50 million over the cap right now. So the franchise tag doesn't really seem like a very realistic option. So we're working with you there. The cap hit is low. So if we're going to come down on our signing bonus to that 28.5 number, that's going to help you guys in the cap hit. It's going to help you create that flexibility long-term, regardless of which way you decide to go at the quarterback position, but it's going to give you some flexibility. And again, our offer lines up in the market. Like this first year cap hit now is going to be 4.2%, which is drastically low compared to what other top receivers in the market are going to get in 2022.
I think it's interesting.
DeAndre Hopkins 12.1, Michael Thomas 11.9. Those are the top guys in the market, and you would be getting Devontae Adams at 4.2%. So,
look, I do think it's interesting that you're calling this agreement, record breaking. You want to set the market, but also you want it to be commensurate with other players in the market. It just isn't commensurate with those other players. We can see that the type of numbers you're asking for, it's not just the signing bonus, but it's also the combination of the extremely high P5 numbers, the APY, and the signing bonus as well. So I think that this just isn't a deal that we can agree to. We have prepared a counter offer that we think is much more reasonable. And I think some of the reason why you've had to come down so much is because, you had these pie in the sky numbers, these really high asks. So of course you've had to come down a little bit, but we are trying to reach a deal, and we don't want to have to pull the franchise tag. We do want to come to an agreement today. So I think to keep us on track, Tyler, are you ready if I share our final offer?
Yeah, I think we can share those numbers.
Okay, so I'm putting it in the original one that we shared with you. So we have increased the APY a bit to just be more reflective of the type of player that Devontae Adams is. But I think that going any higher would just not it just wouldn't reflect the market right now for him. Is there anything you want to add to that, Tyler?
Yeah, so you specifically mentioned Julio Jones. We've expressed the reasons that we have concerns about signing a contract like that, given that Julio's had this massive drop off. This would be matching what Julio Jones is at in the APY. We feel that this is really a very reasonable offer. We hear your desires for resetting the market. However, that's really just outside of what the Packers are willing to do right now. So we hope that we can work something out. If we're close, maybe there's something we can stretch. But right now, it seems like, like Elizabeth said, it is a lot of pie in the sky numbers. And I just don't think that's something the Packers are ready to do right now.
Yeah. So guys, we see your offer and we hear you. Just kind of referencing this notion that our offers have been coming in a little bit over what the market has been set at. We obviously have expressed that we want to see Davante Adams paid as the top receiver and paid above the market value right now. With that being said, some of the figures in this deal, they're not necessarily as we feel too high. The signing bonus numbers as we're coming in line up perfectly with some of the top talent adjusted for the increasing cap situation, along with the fact that we also feel that he is better than these guys. So that's where he kind of deserves that extra little money right there. We are kind of, it seems, a little bit stuck on the signing bonus as well as the APY. I mean, there's numbers that we won't go under, and right now, DeAndre Hopkins is more so a deal we're looking towards rather than Julio. I think the interesting thing about Julio's deal is that when he signed it, it was almost all guaranteed. So there's a little bit of leeway that they had there in terms of the APY number. We feel like the thing that more reflects our guy is the DeAndre Hopkins number. And we feel like we've reflected that very fairly in terms of, working with you guys on these cap percentages to make sure that your hit's not too great.
Right.
Sure.
And just in regards to the pie in the sky comment, when Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper signed their deals, the salary cap was at 182 million. It's grown almost 30 million since then. So when you compare that contract, we've agreed that they're better, that Davante is better than Keenan and Amari. The cap has grown over $30 million. So this contract isn't even comparing from that sense, from a cap percentage perspective. So we really don't see a need to go down to 21.95. And like we've said, we understand that the Packers might not be in a position to want to pay him this much. I think if they see him walk in free agency, they're going to be in a position where they'll regret not paying him that much.
Sure. And I apologize if we didn't explain the franchise tag more clearly. But because the Packers are prepared to offer that franchise tag to Davante Adams, that means that he wouldn't be walking away in free agency. And I just one last thing I want to clarify.
Is coming in. Like we said, we will not come to camp. I mean, it's not something we're considering. We want to see Davante as a Green Bay Packer, but that franchise tag number is too low, and we don't want to threaten this holdout, but we really will.
Right. And again, coming back to the quarterback argument, as you try to please Aaron Rodgers and keep him or move on. If you keep him, you need Davante Adams at camp because you need Aaron Rodgers to be pleased and you need to convince him to come back. If you go to Jordan Love, you're going to want your number one receiver at camp. So since we have some timeouts, I'd like to possibly combine them since we're only at probably like a minute left, maybe take a 2-minute timeout. We'll come back with a final offer. It's not going to be near you guys. And we're prepared to leave this table today without a deal. But we will.
Unfortunately, this is our final offer, and we are prepared to use the franchise tag at this point. I apologize. It is unfortunate that we were not able to reach an agreement, but we think that we've been very reasonable today, and we've tried to accommodate some of your interests. And because we were unable to accommodate them, I just don't see any other option for us. Is there anything you'd like to say, Tyler?
Yeah, and I'd say with that, we're disappointed we couldn't come to an agreement today. I think again, maybe next year we can have a little different situation, hopefully clear up the quarterback position a little bit, opens up that first year cash flow, then maybe we can revisit a long-term contract for Mr. Adams. But I think right now looks like we're probably going to have to execute the franchise tag on him. We hope that he has a change of heart and is willing to take that next year and continue contributing and play for a Super Bowl. But we really appreciate all your time here today.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for sitting down with us, trying to chip away at some of these numbers. Obviously we're very disappointed we didn't get to a deal. We are still kind of in the situation where, Davante will not be coming to camp at the moment. And we're
all right, teams. That is unfortunately time. That is time.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So at this time, Give me one moment. At this time, I'll place the teams into their respective breakout rooms, the coaches into theirs, the judges. I'm going to place you all in the same breakout room. You'll have 10 minutes to talk amongst each other and decide how you're going to vote for each team. So I'll do that right now. And I'll bring, if you do finish before the 10 minutes runs out, the breakout rooms will allow you to return to the main session when you want to, but maximum of 10 minutes. All right. Judges, have you made your decision?
We have.
Each of you, is it unanimous?
No.
Okay, each of you direct message me your decision so I could keep a tally for record keeping purposes.
Oh, I mean, I think Jackie can just speak for all of us.
We were unanimous except for Mike Gisner. So he's
You were with me. SBS.
he picked team. The rest of us went with agent. I was only going to go with him because I felt bad about him being alone.
Right under the bus.
So I will bring both teams back now if you're prepared to give them feedback.
We are.
Sounds
Jack,
good.
you're selling me out on YouTube.
In front of the world.
Let me stop screen share.
You're live on YouTube, Jackie.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Looks
Close up.
like both teams have gotten back. Judges have reached a decision. I'll let whoever would like to speak first and give the results, and then we can open the floor to feedback from all the judges.
So congratulations to both of you for getting this far. We ultimately decided to go with the agent side. We all recognize that the team side had the more difficult task, given the objectives that were presented to you. There was, very little wiggle room that you had. I think I'll sort of speak for myself and then let the other judges kind of talk about what they saw. As far as the agent side, I felt that the facts or the contracts you guys had, the supporting evidence you had, you used a little better. Even though you you did have these large drops in terms of the offers you were making, you kind of supplemented what you were saying better with the contracts and evidence as you sort of presented them. From the team perspective, the kind of only thing you had was the numbers and how they worked out from the franchise tag, and I didn't really feel like you guys applied or explained that effectively enough for me. You got to the point where you brought it up, but the math was not correct. And from the very beginning, when the agent side made their initial offer, it was an easy no by just saying we could tag him for the next 3 years and it'd be less than what you guys are offering. It took you probably a little longer than I felt it should have to get to that point, and then the application was not as crisp and effective as I would have liked it to be. So those were my thoughts.
Any judge would like to jump in next? Or were that the blanket feedback?
I mean, look, I would mirror what Jackie said. I think a lot of us had similar things, to say. I do think that the agent side, addressed, whether we agree or disagree with the numbers that they used, I think that they had a rationale to why they were putting those numbers out there and why they wanted to stick to it. I think the qualitative justification of, Aaron Rodgers' favorite target or being a target for a young quarterback was valid for their position. From the team side, I think, there are several opportunities they had to at least say, address something, whether it was, the early indication that he wasn't coming to camp, of whether or not they were going to be affected by that, or, I know the agent side mentioned percentages of the cap, and, the club side had an opportunity to say, well, you're talking about those percentages in out years of those players' contracts, not the first year of those players' contracts. If you even wanted to entertain cap percentages, which I typically don't. Then, for comps, the club side mentioned Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, and yet their first offer was less than those, which again, we all sort of acknowledge the difficulty of the position they were put in based on their objectives. So it's almost like you might be better off not mentioning those and just going with your offer as opposed to going with those and having an offer significantly less.
So I will leave the floor open to any other judges, but if there are no further comments, the Tulane Pro Football Negotiation Competition Committee would like to congratulate Villanova 1 for their championship. Villanova 2 for their championship this year in the 2022 competition. Your efforts have been recognized and we appreciate your participation. And to anybody who's watching and all the other competitors that were in this 42 team pool this year, we sincerely appreciate your patience and your enthusiasm throughout the entire 2-day event. And to the judges, thank you for your time. We know this is obviously eating into your very busy schedules, and there's a lot of things going on in the world of the NFL. So thank you for your time, and thank you for coaching up and mentoring our students. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we leave, I mean, either of the teams have any questions for any of the judges?
Sure. You mentioned that our calculation of the franchise tag was wrong. Would you mind just explaining that?
Sure. I mean, the first point was the third year of the franchise tag is the quarterback number. Basically, it's the top 5, which is always the quarterback number. So, I mean, you didn't illustrate that when you mentioned it when you were talking about the franchise tag. The other way you probably want to use, and I'll go into a little bit more, as Jackie mentioned, you probably wanted to bring it up a little bit earlier in your conversation, but you also want to outline, okay, if we franchise you this year, the number is 19-1. If we franchise you in year 2, whatever 20% above that is, so it's 23-4, whatever, I'm making these numbers up. And then the third year, you could try and extrapolate the quarterback number there, but just say even at this number, and using that, because that's really your hammer as the team and other teams. I mean, that's really your hammer. It's like, guys, you're asking for 29 million. We can franchise you for the next 3 years, and it averages out to 25 or whatever the number comes out to. And teams do it all the time. You just hit them over the head with it. And also, at least from my point of view, I believe Kai mentioned it, I think the other team just did a better job of really pointing out the different percentages and really using their data to support. And as everyone's mentioned, you guys had a really difficult job, and we understand that, because your objectives were really tight. But that's kind of where we saw it. Does that answer about the franchise tag?
Yes, I think it does.
Okay. So I have a question for the club side. Was there a point that you realized how handcuffed you were by the objectives?
Yeah, I think going in, as soon as we saw the objectives, we knew it was going to be tight. I think, honestly, we knew that Devontae is a great player and they were going to ask for money like DeAndre Hopkins. I was surprised that I didn't hear more feedback from the judges about the 27.5 APY across 5 years. When we were talking about that just seemed like an outrageous number. And I was surprised that we couldn't get any closer than that. But yeah, we knew going in that it was going to be awfully tight between basically anywhere that we came in was going to be below what the other side was going to want. So it was kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It appeared that there was go ahead. It appeared that there was one small opening, for the size to try and see if there was a deal. And that was to basically load up year 2, right? Because you were restricted by your cash flow in year 1. And it seemed like, okay, and you were restricted by the guarantees in year 3. And it seemed like your only really out was if you loaded up year 2, which would have been unrealistic in real life, but for competition's sake, it appeared that that might have been the only vehicle that could have led you guys to a deal.
Yeah, I think we ran the numbers on that, and we would have had to pay him, I think, close to 40 or 50 million dollars just in year 2 to get that, and that really felt like outside the scope of reality.
Yeah,
and then we would have lost on our third objective of the APY too. So it feels like there really was a no-win situation there.
Yeah, I mean, your only out really was if each of you sacrificed one objective,
Yep.
right? The way it was set up, I think each of you probably could have sacrificed your, 2 or 1 objective and gotten the rest, with one maybe getting out ahead 1 point. At no point in time did either of you guys, really think about focusing at it or, eliminating any of those objectives. I think if one of you guys did so, you probably could have got one. You could have got a deal done with also achieving, what you're looking for. But I think you guys both did a great job. You guys were very well prepared. It was interesting to see the stylistic differences. The agent side, you guys were, much more aggressive, using data, moving, trying to keep it fast paced. Whereas the team side was, very slow and methodical, which was the right move for you guys because of your objectives and the, how hamstrung you were, with what you're trying to do. So I thought you guys both really did a great job, and it was interesting to see 2, very different, stylistic, ways to go about it.
Yeah, just to add to that a little bit on the team side, I think as it went on, once you guys kind of figured out the franchise tag was on your side here, you guys actually did a much better job. You started to see how much the agents were dropping down and down and down. And so when you talked about, you're surprised you didn't hear more from the judges on the DeAndre Hopkins aspect of it. I think your job in that case for coming up with a strategy was you had to know they're going to bring up DeAndre Hopkins. So as soon as they bring up that crazy contract, you just have to hit them over the head with the franchise tag stuff right away, because you've only got 40 minutes to do a deal. So you just hit them over the head with that right away. And then you could probably start getting them to chip down, for 40 minutes instead of 10 minutes. And, maybe you could have come to some type of agreement I think both teams are going to have to sacrifice their first objective to come to an agreement, because those two were really kind of in conflict. But I think you might have gotten there if you just started right off at that point, just to get those numbers down.
I'm curious, because I know there's a couple of judges here that actually work in the league. Would you guys have tried to go after the franchise tag or try and wait it out and see if you can get them come down a little more? Obviously, you don't have to work within 45 minutes, so it's a little different. But I'm curious how that works in the real world.
I will answer when we're not on YouTube.
That's fair. I'll take that. Well, thank you guys. We really appreciate you sticking around to give us some feedback too. And thanks for volunteering your time to judge. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to all the judges, first of all, for judging us. Congrats to Team 12. That was a great negotiation. I just wanted to ask one question. Obviously, we were pretty inflexible, and we were holding to that argument about trying to get top money. I think once the negotiation ended, we were kind of saying, should we have at least come down a little more? What do you think would have been a realistic APY to come down to? Because I don't think it's really in dispute, who the top 2 receivers in the league are right now. It's Devontae and probably Cooper Kupp. So but obviously Cooper Kupp's not coming out. So we thought getting a market-setting deal was fair. I don't know how you look at a 5-year deal versus DeAndre's 2 and say, okay, is it APY or is it total value? So once it ended, we were probably saying we could have been more flexible, but I didn't know sort of what the feedback would be from the judges there.
So the team guys probably can't speak to that too much right now. So just for me chipping in, just a outside opinion on it. I think with the DeAndre Hopkins thing, I would imagine on the team end of this, everybody's looking at it as, the Cardinals really had no skin in the game with that contract. They came in there and they're looking at that as basically a 5-year deal. It's a 27.5, 2-year money tacked on with a bunch of guarantees. Most people are going to look at that as a 5-year deal that probably averages $19 million a year. I think for the purposes of this, you'd probably look at the Julio Jones deal. When they mentioned Julio Jones at one point in there and it was getting late in this, I think you could have, brought up, okay, you're bringing up Julio Jones. Let's talk about Julio Jones. Let's just plug his numbers in here as a rough estimate. That would have been 66 million over 3. Let's see if we can work up from Julio Jones, because we're saying he's better than Julio Jones. And maybe you could have worked with those numbers to try to get up to, I think your objective was 25 million a year. I'm not sure if you would have gotten that or not. I don't really know. But I think you could have kind of aimed for that ballpark. And I would have tried to use that deal. Once the Hopkins deal is just thrown out, which it should be, I think you just kind of work off that Jones deal and maybe work off where the market is kind of moved for, Keenan Allen getting to a little bit over 20 million.
Yeah, I also had another question, just kind of a more broad, generalized question. There was some feedback about how some of our qualitative, subjective points that we brought up in terms of, Aaron Rodgers and possibly, a response to the franchise tag were, good things for us in this particular setting. I was wondering, in real life, do those arguments play nearly as much as it could have, played in this, negotiation?
Well, whether they play or not, I won't say that, but I will say anything and everything that you can think of that has been said probably will be said at some point or I've heard many things from the other side. So
100% they'll be brought up. Whether or not they actually move the needle is a different story, but
Exactly.
they'll be brought up.
Exactly.
Ari will bring it up.
Against you, Disner, I'll bring up everything.
Well, fair enough. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Thanks, Tulane, for putting together the competition. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Great, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes the 2022 TPFNC, and we'll see you all hopefully in New Orleans next year for an in-person competition. Thank you for bearing with all the technical difficulties in the Zoom format. I think it was still a great competition this year.